Rot in prison while my new wife and I spend your millions. My husband laughed in the courtroom while they slapped the handcuffs on me. He walked away to celebrate his victory, but he didn't notice me slip a note to the older transport officer. Trevor doesn't know who my real father is. Call Malcolm Sterling at this number. Tell him his daughter was framed. For this call, you'll get a new house and a new life for your family. Hello. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button. Enjoy the story. But none of this happened right away. First, there was the rap of the wooden gavel, a sound that split my life into before and after. The court hereby sentences Victoria Alexandria Dubois to 10 years in a federal correctional facility for embezzlement of company funds. The judge droned monotonously, never looking up from his papers. A heavy, sticky silence fell over the room. I stood in the glass enclosure, feeling the blood drain from my face. 10 years. For stealing company funds that I hadn't even touched. My eyes searched for a single drop of sympathy, but all I saw were the backs of heads, and one face that shone like a freshly polished dime. Trevor, my husband, the man I'd spent 7 years with, stood in the front row. He wore the impeccable gray suit I'd picked out for him for our anniversary. He didn't look upset. He looked victorious. Next to him, clinging to his arm with her manicured fingers, was Sasha. Her bright white faux fur coat looked inappropriately extravagant in that dusty official courtroom. Trevor approached the enclosure while the deputies jangled their keys. He leaned in so close I could smell his expensive cologne, the same kind I'd bought him last Christmas. "Don't miss me, Vicky," he whispered, his lips stretching into a grin that sent a chill down my spine. "You've done your time. Now it's my turn to live large." Sasha giggled. The sound was like the ring of breaking glass. "Trevor, let's go. Our table is reserved for 2 o'clock, she whined, tugging his sleeve. "It's so stuffy in here." "Coming, darling. Let's go celebrate," Trevor said loudly so everyone could hear. He threw one last glance my way, the look of a person tossing an old, useless receipt into the trash, and turned toward the exit. They led me out of the courthouse through a back entrance, a long, poorly lit corridor, walls painted institution green, smelling of damp and stale tobacco. The handcuffs were already making my hands behind my back go numb. 2 officers escorted me, a young deputy who was busy texting someone on his phone, and an older transport officer. I looked at the older man. His name tag read Earl Thompson. He had a weary face, deep wrinkles around his eyes, and a uniform that hung off him like a sack. His boots were old and worn down. It was clear that every single dollar counted in his family. This was my only shot. I took a deep breath. It was now or never. In the darkest corner of the corridor, right before the stairs, I twisted my ankle hard. It wasn't difficult. My legs were barely holding me up anyway. I cried out and stumbled sideways, falling straight into Sergeant Thompson. "Watch it!" the young deputy barked, but he didn't even lower his phone. The older officer caught me by the elbow, keeping me from hitting the concrete floor. At that moment, our faces were close. I caught the scent of cheap tobacco on his jacket. "Please," I mouthed, looking him directly in the eyes. My fingers, curled into a fist behind my back, opened. A small wad of paper wrapped around a $500 bill, everything I'd managed to hide during the strip search, slipped into his rough, calloused palm. Sergeant Thompson froze. He felt the paper. His eyes darted to his young partner, then back to me. His look was one of fear mixed with curiosity. "Make the call," I whispered quickly, while the young deputy lagged a couple of steps behind. "The number's inside. Tell Malcolm Sterling his daughter was framed. This is your chance. I promise you'll climb out of poverty." Sergeant Thompson didn't reply. He just tightened his grip on my arm, helping me stand straight, and subtly shoved his fist into his pants pocket. "Move it, Dubois," he grumbled louder for his partner. "The van ain't waiting." They loaded me into the prison van. The steel door clanged shut, cutting off the light. Inside, it was cold as a freezer. The engine roared, and the van lurched forward. I sat in the darkness, pressing my forehead against the icy wall, counting the seconds. Will he call, or will he toss the note? $500 wasn't much, but for him, it was a sign that I wasn't just another inmate. About 20 minutes passed. The van rattled over potholes. Suddenly, it stopped. I heard the cab door slam shut. Someone got out. Sergeant Thompson stood by a payphone on the street corner while the driver bought cigarettes at a convenience store. The officer's hands were shaking. He unfolded the paper, $500 and a phone number. No name, just digits. He glanced back at the van. The driver was still arguing with the clerk. Earl dialed the number. The phone rang for a long time. He was about to hang up, thinking it was a cruel joke, but then someone answered. "Speak." The voice was heavy, like a granite slab. No hello, no secretary. Malcolm, Mr. Sterling?" Earl stammered. "I was asked to pass on a message. A woman, Victoria Dubois, says she's your daughter, says she was set up." Silence hung on the line. Earl could only hear his own breathing. "Where is she now?" The voice on the phone dropped lower, which only made it sound more terrifying. "In the van, taking her to transfer. We'll be crossing the Jackson Parkway Bridge in a minute." "Wait!" The voice snapped the word out, and the connection cut off. Earl returned to the van, pale as a ghost. The driver hadn't noticed anything. We drove on. 10 minutes later, the van drove onto the bridge, crossing a wide, frozen river. Snow was falling heavily, obscuring the view. Suddenly, the van was violently jerked forward. The screech of brakes, a crash, and I was thrown against the opposite wall of the enclosure. The driver cursed. Outside, there were screams, car horns blaring. "What the hell is that?" the young deputy yelled. The van doors burst open from the outside. Freezing air and the glare of headlights flooded the opening. The road was blocked by 3 enormous black SUVs. They sat sideways across the bridge, completely jamming traffic. Around them stood burly men in black overcoats. No police, no flashing lights. This was a private army. A man stepped out of the center car. He was close to 70, but he moved with the force of a hammer. Gray hair, a heavy coat with a fur collar, a cane in his hand that he didn't even lean on. Malcolm Sterling, the man whose name was whispered in this city. A real estate mogul, owner of factories, and according to rumors, the shadow power of the entire region. The chief deputy of the transport detail scrambled out of the cab with his handgun drawn, but immediately lowered it when he saw who stood before him. "Mr. Sterling," the captain's voice trembled. "We're on a special transport. We can't—" Sterling didn't even look at him. He walked toward the open van doors. His eyes, cold and gray like a winter sky, found me deep inside the steel box. They pulled me out. I was trembling not from the cold, but from adrenaline. I stared at the man I had never seen, but knew shared my blood. I expected anything: a hug, tears, words of comfort. Sterling silently handed the chief deputy a thin folder of documents. "Jurisdiction has been changed," he said in a level voice. "She is now under house arrest pending further investigation, under my personal responsibility." He paused. "Any questions?" The captain opened the folder, saw the signature of the district attorney, and a stamp that hadn't even dried yet. No, sir," he mumbled, holstering his gun. Sterling nodded to his men. 2 security guards approached me, removed the handcuffs, and motioned me toward the warm interior of an SUV. I sank onto the leather seat, still not believing what was happening. Sterling sat beside me. The vehicle started, executing a U-turn across the double yellow line. I turned to him. "Thank you," I began, feeling a lump rise in my throat. "I knew you would help. I knew you wouldn't abandon your daughter." Sterling slowly turned his head. There was no trace of fatherly warmth in his gaze. It was the look of a predator assessing the usefulness of a tool. "Don't flatter yourself, Victoria," he cut me off. His voice was dry and hard. "I didn't pull you out because you're my daughter, and I certainly don't feel sorry for you." He pulled a cigar from his pocket, but instead of lighting it, he simply turned it over and over in his fingers. "Your idiot husband thinks he stole money from your company. He thinks he framed you for the IRS. Sterling smirked, and the expression was worse than any threat. He made a mistake. That $50 million he funneled through your accounts wasn't company money. It was my personal black market fund. My buffer. I froze. Trevor hadn't stolen from shareholders. He had stolen from the most dangerous man in the state. Trevor Ellington didn't just put you away, Sterling continued, looking me straight in the eye. He unknowingly declared war on the king of this city. And you, Victoria, I don't need you as a daughter right now. I need you as a weapon. We're not going to have tea. We're going to plan a counterattack. The car entered a set of wrought iron gates that clanged shut behind us, cutting me off from the outside world. Sterling's mansion resembled a medieval fortress, rebuilt to modern standards of paranoia. High walls, cameras everywhere, armed security with assault rifles. I need to see my son. That was the first thing I said as we got out of the car. Pasha is alone, or with the sitter, or I don't even know where he is. Trevor might have just abandoned him. Sterling didn't slow his stride. He walked toward the massive oak entrance, his cane clicking against the granite tiles. Your son is fine. My people have been watching the house from a distance, he threw over his shoulder, but you are not going there right now. I'm not asking for permission. I tried to overtake him to block his path. I'm his mother, Father. Now I knew he was my father. He stopped and looked down at me. In the bright light of the foyer, I saw my reflection in a mirror. Matted hair, smeared mascara, the cheap gray sweatshirt I'd been arrested in. I looked pathetic. I looked like a victim. You won't go to your son looking like that, he snapped. And there is no way we are going to your husband's party like this either. If you want to destroy Trevor, you have to walk in there not like a beaten dog, but like the woman in charge. He snapped his fingers. Two women immediately appeared from a side door with armfuls of clothing and makeup cases. And behind them walked Earl Thompson, the same transport officer who had been shaking as he made the call an hour ago. Now he wore an excellent black suit that fit him far better than his prison uniform, and a coiled wire earpiece was visible in his ear. Earl Thompson is now the head of your personal security detail, Sterling nodded. He has a strong incentive to protect you. I kept my promise. His mortgage is paid off and his children are set up at college. He looked at Earl. Now he is your shadow. Earl gave me a brief nod. His face was serious and focused. He was no longer a tired old man. He had a purpose. The next hour passed in a haze. They washed me, dried my hair, painted my face, and dressed me like a doll. No questions, just the swift, silent movements of professionals. When I looked in the mirror again, a stranger stared back. A severe, floor-length black gown that perfectly accentuated my figure, a high chignon, diamond earrings, a gift from Sterling. I didn't just look expensive, I looked dangerous. Time to go, Sterling said, checking his watch. Trevor should be giving a toast to his freedom right about now. We drove to the Sovereign Room, the most extravagant restaurant in the city. Earl drove in the front seat, constantly talking into a radio. I sat in the back, clutching my purse so tightly my knuckles turned white. The fear was gone. All that remained was icy fury. The car stopped by the main entrance. The doorman rushed to open the door, but Earl beat him to it. I stepped out onto the street, inhaled the freezing air, and walked toward the doors. The restaurant security tried to block our way. It was, after all, a private, closed party. But Earl simply pushed the large guard aside, and Sterling didn't even look at them. We walked into the main hall. Music blasted, and the clinking of glasses was drowned out by drunken laughter. Trevor stood at the head of a long table, holding a glass of champagne. Sasha was hanging on him, already tipsy. "To our new life!" Trevor was shouting, his face flushed. "And to the dead weight staying at the bottom!" At that moment, we stepped into the center of the room. The music died, as if the DJ's throat had been cut. The silence spread from our table in waves until it covered the entire restaurant. Trevor froze, his glass raised. He saw me. His eyes widened, his mouth dropped open. The glass slipped from his fingers. The sound of breaking glass in the profound silence was like a gunshot. Champagne splashed onto his pants, but he didn't even flinch. I walked slowly to the table. My heels clicked loudly on the parquet floor. The guests, including mutual friends and Trevor's business partners, stared at me as if I were a ghost. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." My voice was even and clear. "I apologize for the delay. Business, you understand." I walked right up to Trevor. He stumbled back, hitting the table, nearly falling. Sasha shrieked and hid behind him. "Vicky!" he choked out. You're supposed to have 10 years. A clerical error, darling." I smiled and saw him visibly recoil from it. "Thank you for looking after my assets while I was preoccupied. That's what you're celebrating, isn't it? The successful preservation of family capital." I sat down at the head of the table, in the seat he considered his own. Sterling remained standing in the shadow of a column, observing. Trevor, white as chalk, nervously pulled out his phone. "I'm calling now. I'm calling the Marshal Service," he hissed. "This is an escape. They'll put you back in a cell. Police! Where's the police?" "I'm right here, Trevor, my boy," a booming voice called from the next table. Trevor spun around. Sitting there was Commissioner Hayes, the city's chief of police. He raised a shot glass of bourbon, looking at me. "To Victoria Dubois' good health," the commissioner roared, downing the drink. "And to justice." The phone dropped from Trevor's hand onto the carpet. He understood that the ground was giving way beneath his feet. He leaned close to me, his face twisted with malice and fear. "You think you won?" he whispered in my ear, spraying spittle. "You think you're back as queen? You have nothing. I sold the condo an hour ago. The deal is closed. Your kid will be thrown out onto the street tomorrow morning by the new owners." He expected hysterics, tears, screaming, but I just looked at him calmly. "Deals can be canceled, Trevor, but the sentence for felony fraud cannot." I stood up and headed for the exit. I needed to get home immediately. The threat about the condo might have been a bluff, but I had to make sure Pasha was safe. Earl was already pulling the car up. We sped through the night city, ignoring traffic lights. My heart hammered in my throat. If he had sold the condo, where was my son? We pulled up to my place, a modest condo in the old 4th Ward. The lights were on in my 3rd-floor apartment. Someone was inside. I ran up the stairs. Earl stayed right behind me. My key didn't work. The lock had been changed. Trevor wasn't lying. I pressed the buzzer and held my finger down. Footsteps sounded inside. Light, shuffling steps. The door opened. Standing on the threshold was not the police, not the new owners, and not the sitter. It was my mother, Nina. She wore a luxurious, full-length mink coat draped over her shoulders, the coat she'd always dreamed of and that I could never afford. Behind her, I saw boxes. The apartment was half empty. "Mom!" I gasped. "Where is Pasha? What are you doing here?" My mother adjusted the collar of the mink coat, and I saw no joy at seeing me, nor fear in her eyes, only cold calculation. "Pasha is sleeping in the back room. Don't yell," she said calmly, blocking my way. "And I live here now." Trevor said he sold the condo. I didn't understand. "He signed it over to me." My mother smirked, and the smile was so like the one I'd seen on Trevor's face in court. "Formally, it's a sale." You're working with him?" I swayed. Earl steadied me with his hand. "Mom, he sent me to prison. He framed me." "I know, Vicky." She yawned, covering her mouth with a hand that sported a new gold ring. "I gave the testimony to his lawyers myself, told them about your black schemes, which didn't exist, of course, but who's checking?" I stared at the woman who gave birth to me and felt something inside me die, completely and irreversibly. "Why?" was all I could ask. "Did you ever think about me?" she suddenly hissed, stepping closer. "You and your principles, your honesty. Just wait, Mom. We don't have the money." "But Trevor? Trevor is a good son-in-law. He offered me a deal. You go to prison and I get a comfortable old age, a condo, a fur coat, monthly payments. I deserve to live for myself, Vicky. And you? You're young. You're strong. You'd serve your time and get out. I only have so much time left." She reached for the door handle to slam it in my face. Go on, daughter. You're not welcome here anymore." The door slammed shut with a heavy thud, cutting me off not only from the apartment, but from the entire past life in which I'd had a family. Earl gently but firmly pulled my elbow. "Ms. Dubois, let's go. We can't stay here. Mr. Sterling is waiting." I didn't resist. In the car, I simply stared at the dark windows behind which my mother was trying on a new life, purchased at the cost of my freedom. The tears stopped. All that remained inside was a cold, ringing emptiness that needed to be filled with action. We returned to Sterling's estate after midnight. I didn't go to sleep. I demanded access to a database and a laptop. Sterling assigned me an office, spacious, smelling of leather and old books. "The condo," I said to myself, opening the online property registry. The sale was finalized yesterday. Notary: Brent Avery. I devoured the electronic copies of the documents that Sterling's hackers had pulled from the city database in 5 minutes. Trevor had been in a rush, too much of a rush. "There it is," I whispered. The time of the e-signature, 11:43 a.m. At that time, I was already sitting in the courtroom, and my passport was locked in the detective's safe. I was physically unable to sign the power of attorney that Trevor had used to sell the condo to my mother. "Earl!" I shouted. The head of security was instantly at the door. "Find me that notary, Avery, now." "He's at the Grove Club Spa," Earl answered calmly, checking his tablet. "Celebrating a successful deal with a few young women. Let's go." 30 minutes later, we were entering the stuffy, eucalyptus and beer-scented private spa. The security at the entrance didn't even have time to shout. Sterling's men worked silently and efficiently. Brent Avery, a balding, red-faced fat man, was sitting wrapped in a towel at a table covered with seafood and bottles. Seeing us, he choked on his beer. 2 women shrieked and ran out of the room when Earl meaningfully nodded at the door. Who are you?" the notary stammered, covering himself with a towel. I walked up to the table and slammed a printout in front of him. "Victoria Dubois, the woman whose signature you forged yesterday morning?" Avery went so pale he looked like boiled chicken. I didn't forge anything. Everything is legal. There was a power of attorney." The power of attorney was bogus. I leaned over him. At 11:43 a.m., I was under escort. I have 100 witnesses and a court transcript. You are going away, Brent, for grand larceny committed by a group. About 7 years. Avery began to shake. He looked at Earl, who was standing by the door, idly swinging a small baton, then at me. "I didn't want to," he squealed. "Trevor made me. He showed me a photo, my wife, my kids. He said if I didn't backdate the deal, something bad would happen to them. He's crazy. He was in debt. He needed to sign over the asset so the collectors wouldn't seize it." "Right." I threw him a pen and a sheet of paper. A full confession. Right now, about the blackmail and the forgery. While Avery, wiping away sweat and tears, scribbled his confession, my phone chimed. A news alert. The headline hit me like a slap in the face. "Crime princess, convicted felon, hiding in mob boss's mansion." Below was my photo, the one from the courtroom, behind the bars. The text read, "Trevor Ellington, well-known businessman, claims his ex-wife is leading an immoral lifestyle and is involved with organized crime. In light of this, he is filing a petition for the sole custody of their son, Pasha. The child cannot live with criminals," Ellington stated. "Bastard," I breathed out. He was hitting me where it hurt the most. He knew the connection to Sterling was a stain, and he was using it to take my son, not because he loved him, but to hurt me more. We returned to the mansion. Sterling already knew. He was sitting in the living room, reviewing documents that his lawyers had brought. "He filed the petition an hour ago," my father said without lifting his head. "Cites your conviction and my past. Formally, he has a strong position. The court could give the child to the father." "It won't." I snatched the folder of medical records that Trevor had included in his petition to establish his paternity and good health. "I'm going to destroy him in court." I started flipping through the documents, reports, lab results, character references. Trevor had gathered everything to look like the perfect father. Here was Pasha's birth certificate. Here was Trevor's medical chart from the private Genesis clinic. I stopped, my eyes fixed on a line in Trevor's blood work analysis. Blood type? B negative. I frowned. My blood type is O positive. Pasha's is A positive. I froze. This was biologically impossible. If the mother is O and the father is B, the child cannot be A. Never. It's a mistake, I muttered. The lab messed up. I turned the page. There was a urologist's report, dated 7 years prior, a year before Pasha was born. Diagnosis: azoospermia, absolute infertility, treatment ineffective. The world tilted around me. Trevor knew. He knew he was sterile even before we got married. But Pasha is my son. I carried him. I gave birth to him. I never cheated on Trevor, not once. How was this possible? My voice broke into a whisper. I frantically read on. Inside the folder was another document, a contract with a reproductive medicine clinic for an IVF procedure using donor material. Signature of the contracting party, Trevor B. Ellington. Signature of the authorized representative who accompanied the procedure, Nina P. Dubois. My mother. The picture snapped into focus with nauseating clarity. 7 years ago, I was in a car accident. I had surgery under general anesthesia. Mom had told me it was a minor gynecological procedure to ensure my health. I was groggy from the drugs. They did this without my knowledge. Trevor knew he was infertile. He needed an heir. Not just a child, but leverage. Leverage against Sterling. My mother knew who my real father was. She knew Sterling had no other children, and she and Trevor decided to create a grandson for the billionaire. They used my body as an incubator, implanting a fertilized donor egg or using donor sperm while I was helpless. They planned it. I looked up at Sterling. 7 years ago. Mom and Trevor. Pasha. He's not Trevor's. Trevor always knew. Sterling took the document from me. His face darkened. So he's not just a thief, he said softly. He's a cuckoo who tried to plant a stranger's egg in my nest, planning to claim the inheritance through the child later. Your mother didn't just sell you out yesterday, Victoria. She sold your womb 7 years ago. I felt bile rise in my throat. All these years, Trevor played the loving father, knowing the child wasn't his. He endured him, raised him only as a business project. This is the end of his petition, I said, my voice as hard as steel. He's not the father. He has no rights to Pasha. None. Yes, Sterling nodded. But now we know your mother is a monster worse than Trevor. I clenched my fists. Now I didn't just want my son back. I wanted to destroy both of them, to grind them into dust. There's a charity gala tomorrow night, I said, staring out the dark window. Trevor will be there, looking for investors. I'm going, and I'm going to turn his life into a living hell. The next morning, the city woke up to the news. Malcolm Sterling was hosting a grand charity ball, Winter's Dream, for children's homes. Admission was by invitation only, and those invitations went to everyone who mattered in the city, including Trevor. I knew he would come. His vanity wouldn't allow him to miss an event where all the region's money was gathering, even if the organizer was his enemy. He thought he had won, that I was broken and hiding. He didn't know I had already set the trap. The evening arrived quickly. The ballroom of the convention center, leased by Sterling, glittered with gold and crystal. Waiters served champagne. Ladies in furs gossiped. I stood on the second-floor balcony, watching the entrance. I wore a steel-gray dress, modest and severe, but incredibly expensive. I wasn't just a mogul's daughter. I was the hostess of this evening. And then he appeared. Trevor walked in like a king, leading Sasha by the arm. She was wearing something loudly pink, with a deep décolletage, completely inappropriate for a charity event. Trevor was smiling, shaking hands, patting bankers on the shoulder. He was confident. He thought he had the condo. He had the sun. And I was yesterday's news. I descended the main staircase slowly, step by step. The music faded. All heads turned toward me. Trevor froze with his glass at his mouth. "Good evening, ladies and gentlemen." My voice, amplified by the microphone, carried across the room. "Thank you for coming to support the children. As a mother, this is especially important to me." I walked through the crowd, smiling at everyone, but looking only at Trevor. I could see him tense up. "Victoria Dubois," Preston Reed, the manager of the Maine Regional Bank, rushed over to me. "What a surprise! We were just discussing your ex-husband's new residential complex project. Grand plans." Trevor immediately forced a smile, trying to take the initiative. "Yes, Preston, we're already past the foundation stage. Investments will triple." I gently touched the banker's arm. "Preston, you know how much I respect your caution," I said softly, but loud enough for Trevor to hear. "I hope you check the status of the collateral property. Rumor has it that the condo Trevor provided as loan security is, shall we say, the subject of a criminal investigation for fraud." The banker's face went blank. He spun around to Trevor. "Trevor, is that true? The condo is under a lien?" "No, it's a lie!" Trevor shrieked, red blotches appearing on his face. "She's lying. She's just getting revenge. The documents are clean." "Documents signed by a notary who gave a full confession to the district attorney yesterday." I blinked innocently. "Oh, Trevor, you didn't tell Preston about Brent Avery? They picked him up at the Grove Club spa. He's singing like a canary." A deadly silence fell around us. The investors standing nearby began to slowly back away from Trevor, as if he were contagious. I can explain everything," Trevor stammered, grabbing the banker's jacket button. "It's a misunderstanding." "Hands off!" the banker roared, brushing himself off. "You will have an audit of all your accounts tomorrow, Ellington, and if there's a single questionable dime, I'm calling the loan. Immediately." The crowd buzzed. Trevor stood in the middle of the hall, drenched in contempt. Sasha, realizing the heat was on, tried to discreetly retreat toward the appetizer table. Trevor gave me a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. He turned and walked quickly toward the service area. The kitchen. I nodded to Earl and followed him. The kitchen smelled of roasting meat and spices. The chefs huddled by the walls in fear as Trevor burst in, knocking over a tray of dirty dishes. He grabbed a bottle of brandy from a counter, drank straight from the neck, and smashed it on the floor. "You!" He saw me. You ruined everything again." His eyes were bloodshot. He stepped toward me, raising his hand to strike. "I'll destroy you. I'll crush you into powder." His fist flew toward my face. I didn't even blink. In the last second, an iron hand intercepted his wrist. Earl stepped out of the shadows, calm and routine, as if he were taking out the trash. He twisted Trevor's arm so hard that Trevor howled and fell to his knees on the dirty tile. "I wouldn't advise it," Earl said quietly. "One more move, and I'll break your elbow." Trevor stayed on his knees, breathing heavily. Sweat dripped from his forehead. He looked up at me from below, and suddenly he laughed. It wasn't hysterical laughter. It was the laugh of a man who still had one last, terrible card up his sleeve. "You think you're so smart, Vicky?" he croaked, wiping his lips with the back of his hand. "You think you found a notary and scared a banker and that's it? You forgot who you lived with for 7 years. You forgot whose daughter you are?" He reached into his pocket with his good hand and pulled out his phone. "Let him go, Earl," I said. Earl reluctantly released his grip. Trevor stood up, dusted off his pants, and, smirking, pressed the screen. "Listen," he said. A crackle came from the phone's speaker, then a voice, low, muffled, with distinct intonations. A voice I now knew too well. Malcolm Sterling's voice. The recording was old, the quality poor, but the words were clear. "Listen to me closely. That developer, Wolcott, he's in my way. He won't listen to reason. Make him disappear for good. No traces. Make it look like a hunting accident or a car crash. I don't care. The main thing is that he's gone by tomorrow." The recording cut off. Silence hung in the kitchen, broken only by the sizzling of oil on a frying pan. I stared at Trevor, my hands turning cold. "Recognize Daddy?" Trevor sneered. 96. Wolcott did die, you know. Crashed his car, brakes failed. Case closed as an accident. Where did you get that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. You should ask your mother. Trevor swayed with satisfaction. Nina Dubois is a provident woman. She kept that tape for 20 years, just in case. She used to work as Sterling's secretary back then, remember? She recorded all his conversations. Insurance. He stepped right up to me. He wasn't afraid of Earl now. He felt the power. This is the original, Vicky. Forensics will confirm the voice. The statute of limitations on murder hasn't expired if the case is reopened due to new evidence. Your old man will go away for a long time and die in prison. What do you want? I asked. It's simple. Trevor stopped smiling. His face hardened. You sign off on the inheritance. You transfer all the stock in Sterling's construction company, the stock he already transferred to you, to me right now, and then this recording disappears. He waved the phone in front of my face. You have 24 hours, Vicky, or your newly found daddy goes to the pen after the man he ordered killed. And trust me, it won't be as comfortable for him as your mansion. He spun around and walked out of the kitchen, knocking the door into a waiter holding a tray. I remained standing amidst the smells of food and grease, feeling the trap snap shut. I had just saved myself from prison, but now prison threatened the only person who could protect me. Ms. Dubois, Earl began. Silence, I cut him off. I need to speak with my father, right now. We returned to the mansion in complete silence. Sterling was waiting in the study, standing by the fireplace. He didn't turn when I entered, but I could see the tension in his back. He already knew. Earl had reported it. Is it true? I asked straight from the doorway. Did you order Wolcott killed? My father slowly turned around. In the firelight, his face looked carved from stone. The voice on the recording is mine, he answered calmly. But the context, they cut the context. Wolcott wasn't a saint. He kidnapped my partner's daughter. I ordered him removed from the picture to free the girl. Disappear meant take him out of the city, not kill him. The accident was a coincidence or the work of someone else. I don't know. He walked to his desk and poured himself water. His hand was steady. But in court, it won't matter, he continued. The recording sounds unambiguous. If it gets to the DA, they'll lock me up pending investigation. And at my age, a cell is a death sentence. Then we have to give him the stock, I said. I'll sign. No. Sterling slammed his fist on the desk. Never. I don't negotiate with blackmailers. I'd rather rot in prison than give my life's work to that scumbag. If you sign, he'll destroy us anyway. He won't stop. I looked at him and understood. He was right. Trevor wouldn't stop until he sucked us dry. Fine, I nodded. Then I'll do it my way. I walked out of the study, dialing a number as I went. Not Trevor's, Sasha's. Hello? Her voice was sleepy and annoyed. Who is this? It's Vicky. Don't hang up if you don't want to go to prison instead of my husband. What are you talking about? She scoffed. Meet me in 20 minutes at the cafe on Peachtree Street. I'll show you the documents Trevor signed using your name. Loan guarantees for $100 million. Are you aware you are now the biggest debtor in the city? Silence hung on the line. I'll be there in 20 minutes, she said in a completely different tone. I arrived early. Sasha rushed into the cafe, disheveled, without makeup, in a tracksuit. She sat across from me, looking around nervously. Show me, she demanded. I placed a folder in front of her, copies of contracts, signatures that looked like hers, but done by Trevor's hand. The amounts were astronomical. He used your ID information, I explained, while she flipped through the papers, growing paler with each page. Trevor is bankrupt. The condo is gone. The business is drowning in debt. He needed money to cover old loans. He took out new ones in your name. As soon as the bankruptcy is official, the debt collectors will come for you. Sasha closed the folder. Her hands were shaking. Bastard, she whispered. He promised me the Maldives, promised to open a boutique, and he was using you as a human shield, Sasha, just like he used me, just like he used my mother. You're next in line for the slaughter. She raised eyes filled with tears and fury. What do I do? Help me! Help me find the recording, I said. The one he's using to blackmail Sterling. It's in his office, in a safe. I know the door code, but he changed the safe code. Did you ever see him open it? Sasha bit her lip, thinking. Then she nodded. Yeah, I saw it. 4 7s. He's as primitive as an amoeba. Let's go. Trevor's office was in a business center on the outskirts. It was deserted at night. The security guard at the entrance was asleep, further proof that the company was doing badly. We went in through the back entrance, which I knew by heart. The office greeted us with the smell of expensive tobacco and stale air. Sasha immediately ran to a painting on the wall and moved it. Behind it was the safe. 4 7s, she whispered, dialing the code. The lock chirped, and the door swung open. The safe was nearly empty. Stacks of old documents, some stamps, and a small digital cassette in a plastic case. That was it. There it is. I grabbed the cassette. My heart was pounding. Victory. But there was something else in the safe. A thin gray folder with no label. I mechanically pulled it out and opened it. On the first page was an old black and white photo. A man who looked exactly like Sasha. The headline, The Wolcott Case. I flipped the page. There were copies of birth certificates, city records. Sasha Andrea Wolcott, born 1999. I froze. I slowly raised my eyes to Sasha. She was standing by the window, nervously tugging at the edge of her jacket. Sasha? I called softly. What? Did you find it? Let's get out of here. I handed her the folder. Did you know he was building a dossier on you? She took the folder. Her gaze skimmed the photo, and suddenly her face changed. The scared girl disappeared. The foolish mistress was gone. Standing before me was an adult, cold woman with a killer's eyes. I knew, she said calmly. I planted some of those papers myself, so he'd think he was in control. Wolcott, I whispered. The businessman my father supposedly ordered killed. My brother, Sasha corrected. Her voice had turned hard, metallic. He was my older brother. He was like a father to me, and Sterling killed him. And I swore I would destroy your entire cursed family. I backed away. The cassette was burning my hand. You didn't just sleep with Trevor for money, I realized. You sought him out. You knew he was the husband of Sterling's daughter. You used him to get to us. Bravo, Vicky, Sasha smirked. Trevor is an idiot. A greedy, stupid idiot. He was so easy to manipulate. I gave him the idea for the loans. I suggested he check your mother's old archives. I led him by the hand to the edge of the cliff so he'd drag you and your father down with him. She took a step toward me. I'm not a victim, Vicky. I'm the executioner. I came to collect a debt, blood for blood. She slipped a hand into the pocket of her tracksuit jacket. I thought she would pull out her phone or keys, but a gleam of blued steel flashed in her hand. A pistol, small, a lady's gun, but deadly. The barrel was pointed right at my chest. Give me the cassette, she said. It's my evidence. With it, I'll put Sterling away, and I'll just kill you here. And everyone will think Trevor shot his ex-wife in a fit of rage. Perfect ending, right? I stood there, my back against the desk. There was nowhere to run. The corridor outside was empty. The security was downstairs. Earl was waiting in the car outside. I had asked him not to come with me to avoid attracting attention. Sasha, this is a mistake, I tried to say calmly, though everything inside me was screaming in terror. Sterling didn't kill your brother. It was an accident. Shut up, she screamed. The hand holding the pistol trembled. I heard the recording. He gave the order. My brother was a good man. And you're all rotten. Give me the cassette. She cocked the hammer. The click echoed in the silence of the office like thunder. I'm counting to 3. 1. I gripped the cassette in my fist. If I gave it up, my father would go to prison. If I didn't, I would die. 2. I looked into her eyes. There was madness there. She would shoot. She absolutely would. At that moment, the office door burst open with a crash. It slammed against the wall so hard that plaster rained down from the ceiling. Sasha flinched. The pistol in her hand jerked, and the bullet went wide, shattering the mirror behind me. Earl stood in the doorway. He didn't ask questions, he acted. In a single leap, he closed the distance to Sasha. She tried to fire again, but Earl struck her wrist with the edge of his palm. The pistol hit the carpet with a dull thud. "Don't move!" Earl roared, twisting her arm behind her back. But Sasha was quicker than we thought. She bit Earl's forearm so hard that he instinctively released his grip. In that second, she kicked his knee, and snatching the cassette I dropped from the floor, she darted toward the back door. "Stop!" I screamed, running after her. But the door had already slammed shut. All we heard was the rapid clatter of her heels on the metal stairs. "She's getting away," Earl hissed, limping to the window. "That's the fire escape. She'll be in the alley and her car is waiting." I ran to the window. Below, in the light of the street lamps, I saw Sasha jump into her red sports car. The engine roared, and the car sped away, leaving black tire marks on the asphalt. "She has the cassette," I turned to Earl. Everything inside me was cold. If she gave it to the DA, it was over for my father. Earl pulled out his radio. "Interception! Red Audi! License plate!" He fell silent, knowing his men wouldn't make it in time. She was already on the highway. "No," I said, and a plan began to form in my mind. A vicious, risky, but only possible plan. "The police won't help. We need someone who hates her just as much as he hates us." I pulled out my phone and dialed Trevor's number. He answered on the first ring. He must have been awake, anticipating news of my downfall. "What do you want?" His voice was drunk and angry. "Ready to surrender?" "Trevor, listen to me closely." I spoke quickly, faking panic. "Sasha was just at the office. She opened your safe." "What?" He sobered up instantly. "How did she open it?" "She took everything, Trevor. Everything. The money you were hiding there, the offshore documents. She said you're broke, that there's nothing left to take from you. She's heading to the airport. She has a ticket for a morning flight to Dubai. She left you, Trevor, just like she leaves everyone else." Silence hung on the line, then a bestial roar. "Where did she go?" "To the highway, toward the airport. Red Audi. If you don't intercept her now, you'll be penniless." He slammed the phone down. I looked at Earl. "Let's go. We have to see this." We raced down the highway that night, keeping our distance. Ahead, about a mile away, a red dot was speeding. Sasha's car. And a minute later, Trevor's black SUV shot out from a side road. He was going for the ram. It was like a gladiatorial fight. Trevor didn't spare the car. He cut Sasha off, squeezing her toward the shoulder. On the empty night highway, their race was surreal. The screech of brakes, the blast of horns. Finally, near the shopping center exit, Trevor violently swerved the steering wheel. His SUV slammed into the side of the Audi. Sasha's car spun out, flew onto the shoulder, and crashed into a snowdrift. Trevor's SUV screeched to a halt across the road, blocking the way. Earl and I stopped about 100 yards away, turning off the headlights. I lowered my window. Trevor jumped out of his car. He had a tire iron in his hand. He ran to Sasha's car and smashed the driver's side window with force. "Get out, you bitch!" he screamed so loud we could hear him. "Give me the money! Give me my money!" Sasha climbed out of the wrecked car. She was swaying, blood on her forehead, but in her hand, she wasn't clutching money. She was clutching the cassette. "What money, you idiot?" she screamed back, her hysterical voice echoing over the highway. "You don't have any money. You're broke. I took the only thing that has value. I'm going to destroy Sterling." A few scattered night drivers began to stop. People got out, pulled out their phones. Someone was already live streaming the scene. A fight between the rich on the highway. The best show for a bored city. Trevor raised the tire iron. "Give it back. That's my dirt. That's my ticket to freedom." "Your ticket?" Sasha burst out laughing, and the sound was more frightening than her scream. She turned to the crowd of onlookers, to the camera phones pointed at her. "People, look! This man is blackmailing his own father-in-law. This cassette has proof of murder. Sterling ordered my brother Wolcott killed, and this worm wanted to sell the evidence for stock." She raised the cassette above her head like a flag. This tape is from '96. It shows the killer. It shows who cut the brakes. Trevor lunged at her, trying to snatch the cassette. They tumbled onto the dirty snow. "Earl, turn on the radio," I said quietly. "Or the internet. This should be live now." Earl turned on his tablet. The local news channel was running a live broadcast. The quality was terrible, a shaky image from a random witness's phone, but the sound was clear. Sasha broke free. She ran up to one of the onlookers' cars, which had its headlights on, and shoved the cassette right into the lens of the phone camera. "Look, I'm going to show everyone. Who has a player?" Of course, no one had a player. But at that moment, a local news camera crew pulled up to the accident scene. They had been staked out nearby at another fender bender and rushed over at the noise. A young, aggressive female reporter shoved a microphone at Sasha. "What is happening? Are you claiming you have proof of murder?" "Yes," Sasha screamed, smearing blood across her face. "Sterling ordered Wolcott killed. The hitman is on video." The cameraman zoomed in on the cassette, but Sasha did something else. She pulled out her phone. "I made a copy," she shrieked. "I digitized it back at the office when he wasn't looking. Watch." She turned her phone screen toward the television camera, and the recording started playing live on all the city's screens during the late-night news. A grainy, black-and-white image. A garage. A man in a leather jacket is fiddling under the hood of a car. The man's face is clearly visible. He turns, smiles at the camera, winks, gives a thumbs up, and then slices the brake line. I stared at the tablet screen in Earl's car, feeling the ground disappear beneath me. "That's not Sterling's hitman," Earl whispered. His eyes widened. "Ms. Dubois, do you recognize him?" I peered at the face on the screen, young, cocky, with a distinctive scar on his chin. I didn't recognize him, but then I heard the news anchor's voice. "Incredible! Viewers, we have just been informed that the man on the video has been identified. This is Bert Ellington, Trevor Ellington's father, a well-known '90s crime figure known as Bert the Blade." Trevor, who was trying to stand up from the snow, froze. He looked at the giant billboard screen by the road where the broadcast was being duplicated. He was looking at his father's face. "Dad?" he whispered. Sasha fell silent too. She switched her gaze from the screen to Trevor. "What?" Her voice trembled. That's your father?" "Yes," the news anchor's voice continued. "It appears the sensation is taking an unexpected turn. The man who ordered Wolcott's murder was not Malcolm Sterling. The killer was Bert Ellington, who was feuding with Wolcott for control of the market in those years. And Sterling, it seems, was simply being set up by having his voice crudely spliced into the recording." Trevor stood on his knees in the snow. All these years, he'd kept the dirt, thinking he had Sterling by the throat, but in reality, he was holding the proof that his own father was the killer, and that his family had destroyed Sasha's. Sasha slowly turned to Trevor. The look of triumph was gone from her eyes. There was only horror and the realization of a monstrous mistake. "Your father killed my brother," she whispered. "Not Sterling. Your father. And you? You knew all this time?" "No!" Trevor screamed, backing away. "I didn't know! Mom said it was Sterling! She said it was his people!" "Your mother lied," I said softly, sitting in the car. "She lied to all of us." Sasha screamed. It was the shriek of a wounded animal. She lunged at Trevor, grabbing his throat. "Be cursed, all of you!" At that moment, the police arrived. Sirens drowned out the screaming. SWAT officers cuffed both Trevor and Sasha. I leaned back in my seat. Sterling was clean. The recording they used to scare us turned out to be a fake, a crude splice created to cover for the real killers. And the person who created that splice was, apparently, my mother. "Home, Earl," I said. "I need to talk to Nina one last time." But we didn't make it home. Earl's phone rang, exploding with a call. "Yes!" he barked. His face instantly went gray. "Got it. We're on our way." He slammed on the brakes, turning the car in a U-turn across the double yellow line. "What happened?" I grabbed the door handle. "Trevor escaped," Earl tossed out briefly, flooring the gas pedal. While the police were cuffing Sasha, he used the commotion, hit a deputy, jumped in a squad car, and took off through the side streets. Where would he go? He has nothing. Cards are blocked. The condo is gone. One place. Earl's voice was grim. Your old family lake house. He was spotted there half an hour ago, and he's not alone. Mom, I whispered. He went after her. He took her hostage. He barricaded himself inside the house and is demanding a helicopter. Says he'll blow the whole place up if he doesn't get a clear path to the border. We flew down the highway, passing tractor trailers, the lake house, the old wooden cabin where I spent my childhood. The place that should have been a sanctuary had become a trap. When we arrived, everything was flashing blue and red. Police cordons, SWAT officers in heavy gear, snipers on the roofs of neighboring houses. Searchlights cut through the darkness, illuminating our old house, which now looked ominous with its boarded-up windows. Sterling was already there. He was standing near the mobile command center, leaning on his cane and talking to the operation commander. "He's a psycho," the colonel was saying. "He has a hunting rifle and gasoline cans. He's doused the perimeter of the house. Any spark will send the whole place up." "What does he want?" I asked, running up to them. "You." Sterling looked at me. For the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Not for himself, but for me. "He wants to trade your mother for you." "I'll go," I said, not hesitating. "No!" my father roared. "You are not going in there. It's suicide." "My mother is in there." I looked at the house. A shadow flickered in an upstairs window. "No matter what she did, she's my mother. I can't let him burn her alive. Besides, he's a coward, Trevor. He won't shoot if he sees a chance to save himself. He needs me as a human shield." Sterling remained silent. He knew I was right. The SWAT team couldn't storm the house. The risk of explosion was too high. Negotiations had stalled. "Give me the megaphone," I demanded. The colonel reluctantly handed me the bullhorn. I walked up to the police line. The wind hit my face, snow blinded my eyes. "Trevor!" My voice echoed over the neighborhood. "It's Vicky! I'm here! Let Mom go!" Silence. Only the wind whistled in the wires. "I know you hear me. Your plan failed. Your father is a killer, and everyone knows it now. You have nowhere to run. Let Nina go, and I'll come in instead. I guarantee you safe passage." The house door cracked open. Trevor appeared on the porch. He looked awful, disheveled, dirty, wearing only a shirt in the cold. He held a double-barreled shotgun. "Come here!" he screamed. "Alone! Hands up! If I see a single cop, I'm lighting this whole place up!" I slowly raised my hands. "I'm coming, Trevor. Don't shoot." I stepped over the police tape. The snow crunched under my boots. Every step was difficult, as if I were walking through water. I felt the eyes of hundreds of people on my back. Police, Sterling, Earl. Snipers had Trevor in their sights, but the order was to hold fire. I reached the porch. "Where's Mom?" I asked. "Get inside." He motioned with the barrel toward the house. "Quick!" I walked into the dark hallway. The smell of gasoline was so strong it burned my eyes, mixed with old wood and damp. The smells of childhood mixed with the scent of death. "Mom!" I called. "I'm here, Vicky." A faint voice from the living room. I rushed in. My mother was sitting in an armchair taped up with duct tape. Her mouth wasn't covered. She was crying, mascara running down her cheeks in black streaks. "Mama!" I fell to my knees in front of her, trying to untie the knots. "It's okay. I'm going to free you now. You'll leave. He'll let you go." Trevor stood in the doorway, pointing the shotgun at us. He was breathing heavily. His eyes darted around. "Go on. Untie her," he urged. "Let her go. I need you more. With you, I'll walk out to the helicopter." I tugged at the tape, breaking my nails. "Mom, run to the police," I whispered. "Don't look back. Sterling is out there. He'll help." Finally, the last wrap of tape gave way. My mother was free. "Go," I said, standing up and turning to Trevor, shielding her with my body. "Trevor, she's leaving. I'm staying." My mother slowly got up from the chair. She massaged her numb hands. She was looking at me with a strange, fixed gaze. "Go on," I shouted, not understanding why she was hesitating. And then something I never could have expected happened. My mother didn't run for the door. She took a step toward me. Her hand darted to a heavy crystal vase sitting on the mantelpiece. The blow was terrifying. The vase crashed down on the back of my head. A flash of pain blinded me. My legs buckled. I collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Colored circles swam before my eyes. Blood streamed hot down my neck. Through the ringing in my ears, I heard her voice, not weak and frightened, but shrill, filled with hate. "You always ruin everything," she screamed, standing over me with a shard of the vase in her hand. "You're always getting in the way." I tried to get up, but my body wouldn't listen. I looked up at her and couldn't believe my eyes. She walked up to Trevor, not like a hostage, but an accomplice. She clung to him, stroking his shoulder. "Sweetie Trevor, she won't betray us," she cooed. "We'll leave, won't we? You promised we'd leave together." Trevor smirked, looking down at me. "Of course, Nina. We'll leave and she'll help us." My world was upside down. This wasn't Stockholm Syndrome. This was something far more terrifying and sordid. "You," I croaked, spitting blood. "You love him?" My mother looked at me with contempt. "Who am I supposed to love? You?" she scoffed. "You're cold, like your father. You're a boring stick in the mud, Vicky. But Trevor is alive. Trevor is a real man. He's the only one who ever understood me, who cared about me. He slept with your daughter," I screamed, trying to reach the remnants of her sanity. "He slept with Sasha." "So what?" My mother shrugged. "Men need variety. The important thing is that he always came back to me. We are partners, Vicky. We're a team. We came up with the plan for the baby. We figured out how to frame Sterling. We did everything together." I felt sick. This woman, my mother, hadn't just betrayed me for money. She had betrayed me for a sick, perverted passion for my husband. She had lived near us for years, observing our life, envious, hateful, and waiting for her moment. She wasn't a victim of blackmail. She was the architect of my hell. "Get up!" Trevor kicked me in the ribs. "Stop lying there. The show is starting." He hauled me up by my hair. I cried out in pain. "Listen here." He pressed the cold barrel to my temple. "We're walking out now. You go first. Nina covers the rear. If you try anything, I'll blow your brains out." "You won't get away, Trevor," I whispered. "Sterling won't let you." "Sterling won't shoot his precious daughter," my mother laughed. "He's an old fool. He's sentimental." She picked up a kitchen knife from the table and stood next to Trevor. A fanatical fire burned in her eyes. She was ready to kill for him, for this nobody who had just been ready to trade her life for his own skin. "Let's go," Trevor commanded. We moved toward the exit. I walked, swaying, feeling the breath of death on the back of my neck. But even more terrifying was the realization that behind me walked the two people closest to me, transformed into monsters, ready to step over my corpse to save their own hides. I don't remember blacking out. I only remember the thud of the rifle butt between my shoulder blades and the darkness smelling of dust. When I opened my eyes, the world was spinning. My head was splitting, and my mouth tasted of copper. I tried to move, but my hands were tied fast to the armrests of an old wooden chair, and my legs were bound with duct tape. I was in the living room. The windows were tightly covered with heavy drapes through which the light of the police floodlights barely penetrated. Inside, only a single dim lamp burned on the ceiling, casting long, dancing shadows. Trevor and my mother paid me no attention. They were busy. They were obsessed. In the middle of the room stood an open vault, an antique oak chest that had always stood in the corner, and that I thought was just a decoration. Now its lid was thrown open, one side smashed in. Inside, in a hidden compartment, yellow ingots gleamed dully. "Gold! Hurry, Nina! Faster!" Trevor hissed, sweeping the heavy bars into a duffel bag. His face was slick with sweat. His eyes were feverishly bright. "The chopper won't wait forever. We have to leave with this." "I'm trying, sweetie. They're heavy." My mother, still wearing that ridiculous mink coat, now covered in dust and cobwebs, fussed nearby, handing him the ingots. "Lord, how many pounds is this? 40, 60, 100? "Idiot," Trevor snapped. "This is Sterling's strategic reserve. Your information was right. The old man kept his retirement fund from the 90s here. We're rich, Nina. We're kings." I looked at them, unable to believe my eyes. This was a grotesque theater of the absurd. My husband and my mother, the two people who should have been my support, were robbing my father's secret vault while the SWAT team waited outside. "You won't get away," I croaked. My throat was dry, my voice a scrape. They both flinched and turned around. "Sleeping Beauty wakes up." Trevor smirked. He walked up to me, holding a gold bar like a brick. "Look, Vicky, look closely. This is the price of your life. This is what your mama sold you for. And you know what? It was worth it." He brought the ingot close to my face. "Pure gold. 4/9 fine. With this, we'll buy new passports, new faces, and an island in the Caribbean. And you'll stay here as a gift for Sterling." My mother followed him. She wasn't looking at my eyes. She was looking at the bag of gold. "Vicky, don't be mad," she said in a casual tone, as if we were discussing the weather. "It just worked out this way. You have only yourself to blame. You're too proper, too boring, and life favors the bold. Trevor is bold. He took a risk, and we won." I looked at the yellow metal, at their greedy, trembling hands, and suddenly I started to laugh. At first, it was a quiet chuckle, bubbling up in my throat along with the blood, but then it burst out. Loud, hysterical, insane laughter. I laughed and couldn't stop. Tears streamed down my cheeks, mixing with the dirt. Trevor recoiled. "What are you laughing at, you fool?" He raised the ingot. "Shut up!" You're idiots," I choked out through my laughter. "Oh God, you are such idiots!" "Shut up!" my mother shrieked. "Trevor hit her. She's hysterical." "No, Mom, this isn't hysterics." I raised my head and looked at them with clear, cold eyes. "This is a comedy. You're robbing a museum of wax figures." "What are you talking about?" Trevor tensed up. "Do you honestly think that Malcolm Sterling, the man who controls half of the Southeast, would keep 100 pounds of gold in a rotten old chest at a cabin where any bum could find it?" I laughed again. "This vault was a trap for fools like you, set up back in '98. "You're lying," Trevor whispered, but the hand holding the ingot lowered. "Check it," I nodded. "Get a knife, scratch it. Gold is a soft metal, and lead is even softer, but under paint, it's gray." Silence fell in the room. All we could hear was Trevor's heavy breathing and the wail of sirens outside. Slowly, as if in a dream, he pulled a pocket knife from his pants. He looked at the ingot in his hand. It had a stamp. Bank, purity, number. Everything looked perfect. "Don't listen to her, Trevor," my mother screamed. "She's trying to hold us up." But Trevor wasn't listening. The doubt I'd planted instantly took root. He dragged the blade of the knife hard across the edge of the ingot. The gold paint peeled off in a thin strip. Beneath it, a dull, dark gray metal was revealed. Lead. Trevor froze. He stared at the gray scratch as if it were a death sentence. "No," he whispered. "It can't be." He grabbed another bar from the bag, scratched it. Lead! A third! Lead! A fourth! He dumped the entire contents of the bag onto the floor. The heavy bars crashed onto the parquet, leaving dents. He crawled among them on his knees, scratching each one, growling like a wounded animal. All of them. Absolutely all the ingots were fake, cheap theatrical props. Lead. Trevor raised his head. His face was white as a sheet. "It's just lead." He slowly turned to Nina. "You said..." His voice was quiet and terrifying. "You said you saw him put gold in here. You swore it." My mother backed away toward the wall, pressing her hands to her chest. "Sweetie, Trevor, I did see it. I swear. 20 years ago, he brought a crate. He opened it in front of me. It was gold. I didn't know. He must have switched it." "Switched it?" Trevor roared. He jumped to his feet, clutching a lead bar in his hand. You set me up! You made me jump into this noose for a pile of painted lead! I didn't know!" my mother shrieked, trying to hide behind the armchair. "Trevor, please, we'll figure something out. We have Vicky, we'll trade her." "Go to hell!" Trevor swung the fake ingot at her. The heavy bar hit the wall about an inch from her head, punching a hole through the plaster to the brick. My mother screamed and fell to the floor, covering her head with her hands. "You ruined everything, you old witch. Because of your greed, I'm going to die here." He lunged at her. A struggle began. Trevor was hitting her. She clawed at him viciously, trying to get away. This was my chance, the only one. While they tore at each other like rats in a barrel, I began to act. My hands were tied behind my back, but I remembered Earl's lesson, always have a backup. When they searched me before tying me up, Trevor had taken my phone and keys, but he hadn't checked the lining of my jacket. There, in a small hidden pocket that Earl had shown me back at the mansion, lay a tiny ceramic blade. It wouldn't trigger a metal detector and was sharp as a razor. I twisted, trying to reach the seam with my fingers. My fingers were numb, but adrenaline was pumping blood. I found the blade, pulled it out. One clumsy move, and I'd slit my own wrists. Trevor, meanwhile, grabbed my mother's hair and dragged her toward the exit. "You're going first," he yelled. "If the snipers shoot, they'll hit you." "Trevor, stop! It hurts! I love you!" "Shut up! I hate you!" I sawed at the duct tape on my wrists. The blade slipped, grazing my skin, but I didn't even feel the pain. Another stroke. Another. The tape snapped. My hands were free. I immediately bent down and sliced the bindings on my legs. Trevor and Nina were at the door to the hallway. They weren't looking at me. I jumped up. The shotgun Trevor had dropped when he started checking the gold was lying on the table. I grabbed it. Heavy, cold. I didn't know how to shoot, but they didn't know that. "Stop!" I yelled, cocking the hammers. The click was like thunder. They froze. Trevor slowly turned around, still clutching my mother's hair. Seeing me with the shotgun, he let go of Nina, and she slid to the floor like a sack, sobbing. "Vicky!" Trevor raised his hands. "Vicky, baby, don't be stupid. It's loaded. You'll hurt yourself." I said, "Stop." I leveled the barrels at his chest. My hands were shaking, but my finger was steady on the trigger. "Get away from the door, both of you against the wall." "Vicky, we're family," my mother whined from the floor. "Shut up!" I roared, silencing her. "You are not my mother anymore. You're an accomplice. Crawl to the wall now." Trevor took a step back, then another. His eyes darted around the room, looking for an escape. "You won't shoot," he said, trying to flash his signature charming smile, which now looked like a skull's grin. "You're not a killer, Vicky. You're an accountant. You love numbers, not blood." "I've learned a lot in the last 3 days," I replied. "For example, that sometimes you have to subtract the unnecessary variables." At that moment, a siren wailed louder outside the window. A voice boomed over the megaphone. "Ellington, come out with your hands up. The house is surrounded. You have 1 minute." Trevor flinched. He knew this was the end. "I won't go to prison," he hissed. "I won't rot in jail for your father." He suddenly leaped sideways, rolled over the sofa, and tore toward an inconspicuous door in the corner of the room, the basement door. "Stop!" I pulled the trigger. The shot deafened me. The buckshot shredded the doorframe, but Trevor had already vanished into the darkness of the opening. "He's going through the tunnel!" I screamed, throwing down the useless shotgun. I ran to the back door, unlocked the bolt, and flung the door open to the street. "Over here! He's in the basement! There's a tunnel!" SWAT officers poured into the house, black masks, shields, assault rifles. They pushed me aside, forcing my mother face down onto the floor. "Clear! Hostage is safe!" the commander yelled into his radio. "Suspect went to the -1 level. There's a tunnel." "It's a sewer line!" I screamed through the noise. "It leads to the river. He'll get away." "He won't," a calm voice said behind me. I turned around. Sterling was standing in the doorway. He leaned on his cane and looked at the basement door with a strange, almost mournful expression. "Why?" I asked. "He knows that tunnel. We played there as kids." "Because I knew he would run there," my father answered. "I knew it 3 days ago when he started panicking. A rat always runs to the deepest hole." Suddenly, the floor beneath my feet trembled. A dull, guttural rumble came from under the ground, as if a giant beast had sighed in the depths, followed by the sound of a crash, breaking concrete, and a scream. A terrible, inhuman scream that cut off as suddenly as it began. Dust billowed up from the cracks in the floor. "What was that?" I grabbed Sterling's arm. "An engineering solution," he said dryly. "That tunnel has been unstable for 10 years. I ordered the support beams at a key juncture sawed through. Any vibration, even running fast, and the roof collapses." I looked at him in horror. You killed him?" "No, he killed himself, with his own greed and fear. I just removed the safety latch." The SWAT team was already breaking down the basement door. "Medics!" someone yelled from below. "A cave-in! A person buried! We need equipment!" The next few hours passed in a daze. Excavators and rescue workers arrived. They tore up the living room floor, digging into the old basement. My mother was taken away in a police car. She was wailing and banging her head against the window. I sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, drinking hot tea Earl handed me. Sterling sat beside me, silently holding my hand. At dawn, when the sky turned gray, they brought a body up from the basement. Trevor was alive, but unconscious. His legs were crushed by a fallen slab of concrete. They put him on a stretcher. But the most interesting part happened later. One of the rescuers, clearing the debris, struck the basement wall with a crowbar, trying to widen the passage. The brickwork, old and damp, crumbled, and money poured out. Not stacks, but bricks, tightly wrapped in plastic, entombed right in the wall. Dollars, euros, rubles, millions. "Holy cow," the rescuer breathed out. The entire wall of this basement where Trevor had hidden for 24 hours, where he had planned his escape, where he had searched for gold, that entire wall consisted of money. "That's the money," Sterling said, walking to the edge of the pit. "The money he stole from the company. He didn't transfer it offshore. He didn't spend it. He was too paranoid. He was afraid of banks." I walked up and looked down. In the light of the lamps, the mountain of cash mixed with dirt and bricks looked like garbage. Trevor, that genius of financial schemes, the man who dreamed of the high life, was literally living inside a wall of cash. He was sitting on millions, eating instant ramen, trembling with fear, and searching for mythical gold. While real wealth surrounded him on all sides, he had entombed himself in his own stolen happiness. "The irony," I said quietly. "He was looking for a treasure while sitting on one, and that treasure almost crushed him." "It's not irony, Victoria," Sterling replied, turning to me. "It's inevitability. Money gained through betrayal always turns into a rock that drags you down." A doctor ran up to the stretcher. "He's coming too! Load him up!" They carried Trevor past us. He opened his eyes. His gaze was cloudy with pain and shock. He saw me, saw Sterling, and saw the mountain of cash being shoveled out of his hiding place. He tried to say something, reaching out a hand toward the money. "Mine," he croaked. "It's mine." "Not anymore, Trevor," I said, looking down at him. "That's evidence, and you're just construction debris." They carried him away. The ambulance doors slammed shut. I was left standing amidst the ruins of my past. The house was destroyed, my family annihilated. My mother in handcuffs, my husband in the trauma unit before prison. But I felt a strange lightness, as if a slab of concrete had been lifted from my shoulders. "Let's go home, daughter," Sterling said. "Pasha is waiting. He has his first riding lesson today. You promised to watch." I nodded. "Let's go." We walked toward the car. I didn't look back. The Victoria, the victim, the naive fool, was left behind in the wreckage of the cabin. A different woman got into the car, a woman who had walked through fire and emerged not burned, but tempered. And this woman had one last court date ahead of her, a court date where she had to put the period at the end of the sentence. 3 months passed. The snow that had covered the tracks of the crime that terrible night at the cabin had melted, turning into dirty spring slush, and then fresh white snow had fallen again, covering all the grime of this city. The courtroom was stifling, not from the heat, but from the concentration of people. It seemed the entire city had come to see the finale of this drama. Journalists crowded the aisles, cameras clicked like a swarm of hungry locusts. This was the trial of the decade. The Ellington case, as the press dubbed it, was so rich in detail that crime TV writers were biting their nails with envy. It had everything: fake paternity, the theft of millions entombed in a wall, attempted murder, hostage-taking, and secrets from the 90s. I sat in the main witness chair. I wore a perfectly tailored, immaculate white pantsuit. The color of innocence. The color of a new page. I felt hundreds of eyes on me, but I no longer cared. I was calm as a glacier. Across from me, in the very same glass enclosure where I had stood 3 months ago, sat Trevor. He was unrecognizable. The polished businessman who had laughed in my face was gone. He had lost 30 pounds. His face, once smooth and smug, was covered in gray stubble and deep wrinkles. He sat slumped over, leaning on a crutch. His legs, shattered by the concrete slab in the tunnel, had healed poorly, and he would be permanently lame. But the most frightening things were his eyes. There was no longer any arrogance or cunning in them. Only animal fear and persecution. He constantly looked around, flinching at every loud noise, searching for someone in the room. But there was no one to look for. My mother, Nina, was not in the courtroom. After that night at the cabin, her sanity had failed. When the police led her out of the destroyed house, she was still clutching a piece of lead-painted gold, screaming that she was the Queen of England. Doctors diagnosed acute reactive psychosis amidst a profound personality disorder. Now she was in a closed unit at the state psychiatric hospital. They say she spends her days sitting in the corner of her room, molding ingots out of breadcrumbs and hiding them under her mattress, waiting for a helicopter to rescue her. She betrayed her daughter for gold that turned out to be lead, and that knowledge consumed her from the inside. Witness Dubois, continue. The judge's voice brought me back to reality. I adjusted the microphone. As I was saying, Your Honor, the defendant Ellington acted with full awareness. The scheme to embezzle funds was personally designed by him. He used my accounts as transit, forging my electronic signatures. Forensic analysis confirmed that the IP addresses from which the transactions were conducted belonged to his laptop. Trevor flinched in the cage. "It's a lie!" he screamed in a hoarse, broken voice. "She set everything up, her and her mob boss daddy." "Defendant, sit down," the judge roared. "One more word, and I will have you removed from the court." I didn't even glance his way. I continued to speak in a level, dry voice, listing the facts. I would also like to draw the court's attention to the genetic test results. The defendant knew about his sterility since 2015. Nevertheless, he conspired with my mother, Nina Dubois, to arrange the implantation of donor material without my knowledge. The goal was the birth of a child who would become a tool for blackmailing my biological father, Malcolm Sterling, to gain access to his assets. A murmur went through the courtroom. People whispered, shaking their heads. Even for the cynical public of our city, this was too much. To sell one's own daughter, to use her body as an incubator for a stranger's sperm for the sake of an inheritance, it was beyond good and evil. Therefore, I concluded, looking directly into the judge's eyes, Trevor Ellington is not just a fraud. He is a man who systematically destroyed the lives of those around him for years, all for profit. He deserves no leniency. I returned to my seat. Sterling, sitting in the front row, gave me a brief nod. He looked pleased. Today, he wasn't just a spectator. He was a victor watching his enemy paved over by the law. The closing arguments lasted another 2 hours. Trevor's court-appointed lawyer, a free public defender, as Trevor had no money left for a paid one, everything having been seized, feebly tried to appeal to the defendant's health condition. But against the facts, The millions buried in the wall, the forged documents, the testimony of the notary Avery and Sasha Wolcott arguing was impossible. Finally, the court recessed for deliberation. When the judge returned, a grave silence fell over the room. In the name of the United States of America. I listened to the verdict, and every word fell like a stone on Trevor's coffin lid. Find the defendant guilty of counts of grand larceny, unlawful restraint, and possession of an illegal weapon, and sentence the defendant to a term of incarceration of 15 years in a maximum security prison. The rap of the gavel, bam, the exact same sound as 3 months ago, but now it sounded like music to me, like the final chord of a symphony of justice. Trevor wailed in the cage. He slid down onto the bench, covering his face with his hands. 15 years, he cried. I won't survive. You can't do this. This is a mistake. The deputies, the very same guys as last time, roughly pulled him to his feet. Time to go, Ellington. Your good life is over. I stood up and was the first to leave the courtroom. I knew where they would take him. I knew the route. I walked down to the long, echoing corridor on the ground floor where the transport officers brought the inmates to the prison vans. I stood by the wall, crossing my arms over my chest. A minute later, I heard the clank of handcuffs and the shuffling of feet. They were bringing Trevor. He could barely walk, leaning heavily on the officer's shoulders. Seeing me, he stopped. The officers, obeying my barely noticeable nod, they knew who I was now, and they knew that Earl Thompson now commanded the security of this building, momentarily loosened their grip, allowing us to talk. It was a mirror image of the scene 3 months ago. I had stood here, crushed in handcuffs, while he walked away to celebrate. Now I stood free in a pristine white suit, and he was in shackles. Trevor looked up at me. His eyes held a mixture of hatred and pathetic hope. Well, he croaked, spraying spittle. Did you come to gloat? Satisfied? 15 years, Vicky. I'll die in there. I have debts. Do you know what they'll do to me in prison for debts to serious people? They'll kill me in the first month. He began to sob. Vicky, you have a heart. Ask your father. Let him put in a word. Let me be transferred to minimum security. I'll give everything back. I'll work for you. I stared at him silently. This pathetic, broken creature I had once called my husband, who had slept beside me, knowing I was carrying a stranger's child, who had been ready to burn my mother alive for fake gold. I slowly pulled a small slip of paper from my pocket. Remember, Trevor? I said softly. 3 months ago, I handed over a note here. It saved my life. Trevor froze, staring at the paper in my hand. What is it? He whispered. You want to help me? I stepped toward him and slipped the note into the breast pocket of his prison jumpsuit. Take a look. He took the slip with trembling, shackled fingers. He unfolded it. It wasn't a check for $1 million or a letter of forgiveness. It was a receipt, a bank transfer for $20. Trevor looked up at me, confused. You put $20 in my commissary account? For tea. I smiled, but my eyes remained cold. Buy yourself a pack of the cheapest tea, so you have something to warm you up in the barracks. You're mocking me? His face contorted. Now listen to me. I cut him off, lowering my voice to a whisper that sent a shiver down his spine. You're afraid they'll kill you for your debts? Don't be. They won't kill you. I paid your debt. I stepped closer to him, so close he could smell my expensive perfume. Yesterday, I met with the people you owed money to for your schemes. I paid them everything, down to the last penny. A flicker of insane hope flashed in his eyes. You paid it, Vicky? Thank you. I knew you loved me. You don't understand. I shook my head and my smile became like a razor blade. I didn't forgive your debt. I bought it. Now you owe me, not them. You owe me. I made a deal with the warden of your prison. They won't touch you. They'll protect you. Trevor stared at me, and the meaning of my words began to sink in. You will live, Trevor. A long life, all 15 years. You will work in the textile factory 12 hours a day. You will scrub toilets, you will eat slop, and every month you will transfer your entire paycheck to me to pay off your debt. I grabbed the lapel of his jumpsuit and pulled him close. Death is too easy an exit for you. I want you to live so that every morning you wake up on those hard bunks, look at the bars, and know you are only alive because I decided it. You are my property, Trevor, my canary in a cage, and I will savor every day of your incarceration. He stumbled back as if from fire. The horror in his eyes was bottomless. He understood that I hadn't saved him. I had sentenced him to a hell from which there was no escape through death. "Are you the devil?" he whispered. "I'm just a good student," I shrugged. "I had excellent teachers, you and my mother." The officers pulled him toward the exit. "Oh, and by the way," I threw after him, "about your young wife, Sasha." Trevor turned, his chains clanking. "What about her? Did they put her away?" "No." I brushed a non-existent piece of lint from my sleeve. "She made a deal with the prosecution. She gave you up completely, told them all the schemes about your father's murder, everything. She got probation." "Where is she?" he croaked. "She works for me," I smirked. "As a housekeeper. She's mopping the floors in the very mansion where you dreamed of living. You know, she's very diligent. She understood the most important rule of this life. It's better to serve the winner than to rot with the loser." I gave him a final cold look. "She sent her regards and said the mop suits her better than the mink coat." Trevor screamed. It was a cry of impotent rage, the scream of a man who had been utterly humiliated and crushed. He fought against the officers, trying to lunge at me, but they dragged him toward the steel door. "Rot there, Trevor!" I shouted after him, repeating his own words. "Rot long and happily." The door slammed shut, cutting off his cries. I stood alone in the silent corridor. I took a deep breath. The air smelled of bleach and institutional rot, but to me, it was sweet. I turned and walked toward the exit. With every step, the click of my heels sounded more assured. I walked out onto the courthouse steps. The bright spring sun hit my eyes. The city was living its life, oblivious to the tragedies and triumphs happening behind those walls. By the gates, a black Maybach was waiting. The window of the back door rolled down. Malcolm Sterling looked out, and next to him sat my son, Pasha. He was smiling and waving to me. "Mom," he shouted, "Grandpa Mal promised we're going to the zoo. Are you coming?" I looked at them. My father, who had found a daughter and gained not just a relative, but an equal partner. My son, who had been saved from lies and filth. I walked down the steps. The snow crunched under my feet. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, getting into the car. "I'm coming with you. Now we'll always be together." The car door softly closed, cutting off the noise of the street. "Is it all over?" Sterling asked, looking at me intently. "No, Dad," I replied, looking in the rearview mirror at the retreating courthouse. "It's only just beginning." I placed my hand on the folder of documents lying on the seat beside me. They were the papers transferring management of the Sterling Group construction holding to me. I was no longer a victim. I wasn't just a daughter. I was Victoria Dubois. And this city now knew that it was best not to go to war with me. The car smoothly pulled away, carrying us toward a new life. A life where there was no longer any room for betrayal, but plenty of room for strength, family, and, strangely enough, love for myself and for those who truly deserved it. So there it is, dear listeners, a story about how the closest people can become more terrifying than enemies, and how a fragile woman can turn into a steel blade when pushed into a corner. What do you think? Did Victoria do the right thing? Was she too cruel to Trevor in the end? After all, 15 years in prison is already a punishment, yet she effectively turned his life into slavery. Or did a betrayal of that magnitude, where a husband and mother sell you and your child, deserve exactly that kind of retribution? And what about Nina, her mother? Can her actions be excused by love, even a sick and twisted one? Or was it simply greed disguised by pretty words? Write your opinion in the comments. I'm very interested to read whose side you're on in this conflict. If this story moved you, made you empathize, or feel outrage, please give this video a like. It's the best reward for the author. And be sure to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the continuation of our other dramas. All the best to you. At the end of this video, a window will appear in the center of the screen. Please click on that window. You'll find our other most interesting stories there.